Hello, everybody. This is Jonathan Diaz, TK-16890. Today's guest is Ruby Rinekso, TK-1245. He is a longtime ECG member. How's it going, Ruby?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Johnny Diaz, what's happening, buddy?
Not much, man. Just enjoying my quarantine. How's
Oh,
everything
man,
going with you?
as much as anyone could be doing, as much as anyone could be enjoying it, that's what we're trying to do, man. Trying to get through this whole thing, man. Trying to survive. We're in this together, man.
That's why one of the good things about doing all these talks with different 501st members, because at least I get a way to hang out with everybody.
I feel like I'm on Oprah. You're not gonna make me cry, are you?
No, I'll try not to. So, Ruby, you've been with the doing costuming for I don't know how long, but you've been doing Star Wars costuming for over 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably since the 2005. Yeah.
So, what I would like to do a little different with this one, because a lot of people I've been interviewing have all been like newer members, and you know, I would love to hear the perspective from someone who's been in the ECG since almost it began and kind of hear about how it was in the beginning and how everything started and how it became a small thing to such a big thing now.
Well, I don't think I certainly wasn't in what you would consider the first wave
Mm-hmm.
of ECG. I probably would consider myself probably second generation. In fact, when I first joined 501st, you probably don't know this. I didn't immediately join ECG. I was NER for a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
I was NER for a little bit, it was just some sort of, snafu. And then I came on to ECG. But how it began, it's quite a story. In fact, I was kind of, back in 2005, if you can imagine, this was a world before like Comic Cons were like a huge thing. Now there's like or at least before COVID life, there was Comic Cons like there was Comic Cons like like every month or multiple times a month, and there it's such a huge industry now. But back in 2005, there wasn't a lot of shows. But in 2005, I attended Star Wars Celebration 3, if you can
Okay.
imagine. 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's taking it back.
Okay. Where are we now? I lost track. But
Ah, man, I don't even know at this point.
but this was a Celebration 3, and this was in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And I attended strictly as a fan. And this is how green and like naive I was. I went there, and it really, if you can imagine this, it was almost like an awakening of the eyes. I have never seen anything like this before. This huge sort of a community, a convention this large, so packed with people. And when I saw all these stormtroopers just marching in a parade, I had no idea what the 501st was. I had no idea about any of these costuming fan groups. You're gonna laugh. At that point, I thought it was like, Lucasfilm sending in actors or with a character actors or something like that. And I thought to myself, wow, Lucasfilm really went all out. They sent, all these actors and stormtroopers, whatever. I had no idea. I mean, there were so many. I had never seen a sight like that in my life. Years later, you kind of get, desensitized to it and see so much of it. But back then, it was just like, oh my God, what is this? I feel like I'm in the movie or in one of the movies. And I just started talking to people, and they told me that these were just regular folk. This was a fan club. called the 501st Legion. I'd never heard, what is 501? I mean, other than a pair of button 5 jeans. You know, that was the only reason I knew what 501 meant. And I remember it was a guy. He was from Texas Garrison. I don't know what Garrison it was there, but and he was just giving me the scoop and giving me the just, you know, the basic gist of what the 501st Legion does and all that. And you know, he asked me where I was from. I told him I was based in New York City. And okay. He says, yeah, I know what Garrison is over there. And I'm like, what? Garrison. I didn't even know what the word Garrison meant. Like, what is that? This is how green I was in 2005. And he says, well, it's it's you know, every town, every location, every state, whatever, has a local a charter or local section, and they call it Garrison. Okay, all right. And he says, well, you know, when you go home, if you're interested, look up the Empire City Garrison, look up 501st Legion, and if you want to enter, if you want to join, and get all the info, and submit your costume. And that just, you know, that started off, I guess, you know, 15 years later, on a string of adventures I would have in my life with the 501st Legion. And I owe a lot of wonderful experiences being in the 501st. I mean, it just opened up a lot of great opportunities. I was, because of being in the 501st, I ended up being featured in, you know, multiple TV commercials. In fact, you were in one of commercial. Yep. Right? We did that Christmas commercial.
Yeah, me and Chris were talking about that too on our interview, and yeah, it's crazy how every year people still post that, and you can go, oh yeah, that's me in there.
And it was just, remember how freezing it was?
Yeah, it was freezing. They had no place to put us. They just had us standing in the cold, like, for
a cup of hot cocoa. I remember that, but yeah, there was that. I did other commercials, being featured as a stormtrooper, and it also knocked off another, I guess, personal bucket list or wish list notch in my head. It got me to be in a couple times, for a couple of years, I got to be in an official Disney parade at Disney World for Star Wars Disney weekends, when they used to do that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, when they used to invite the Garrisons to come, obviously led by the local Florida Garrison over there. But you know, if you submitted your material, if you were from another Garrison, you know, they would probably accept you. And I got accepted to join in March with them. I get for at least 2 years, about 2 or 3 years, and that was great. I mean, I was burning in my armor in the Orlando heat, but I was in an official Disney parade. That was like amazing for me. So, yeah, I mean, being in the 501st has led to a lot of warm memories and great opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I've only been doing this for half the time you have, and I've done some crazy things that I never thought I've ever done, from commercials to wearing costumes that were from the movie to some crazy things. So for a lot of the newer members, they only know the Disney Lucasfilm, but before Disney Lucasfilm, it was just Lucasfilm, and it was kind of a different time for the 501st before Disney was around. How was it? How was trooping back then, and what were the types of things you guys were doing and stuff like that?
Well, I'm a bit, you know, kind of unfamiliar as to how things are working nowadays, under the Disney banner. But no, back then there was, you know, I remember if there was a screening process. You had to, you know, I remember being, you know, having to show, you know, depending on how high profile the event was, I remember, submitting photos regularly, and there was always, because probably the amount of media that would be covering it, there was always like rules of what you can do and what you can't do, and all that. And I can only imagine, it's probably the same now, but yeah, there were definitely some rules and guidelines that we had to follow. I mean, it wasn't a huge free for all or anything like
Okay,
that.
cool.
But
Yeah, these are things that I'm not really that aware of. But yeah, it seems like it's the same thing that we do now is how it was then. Because I think the only thing that I did that was Lucasfilm still was when we did the commercial. But I'm 100% sure we wouldn't be allowed to do that commercial today because of the dancing and stuff like that and the rules they have now of stormtroopers being more serious.
well, I guess they wouldn't ask us to twerk.
But I'm glad we had that experience.
We should, everyone watching, just go on YouTube and do a search for Stormtrooper holiday commercial.
Yeah. Spike Star Wars holiday commercial. It'll come right up.
Spike TV, yeah.
Funny little side story. We just did a commercial a couple months ago for ESPN, and I was with some of the people from Lucas, and I was eating lunch with them, and I was telling them about that commercial, and they was like, there's no way they let you do that commercial. I was like, no, yeah. I showed them the commercial. They never saw it. Their jaws almost dropped. They were like, they let you guys do that commercial? I'm like, oh, yeah. They definitely did.
Oh, back in the day. I mean, listen, if the director of that commercial directed me in 2 other Spike commercials prior to that. So I had already known the director when we were shooting it. And you want to talk about things that, you probably wouldn't be allowed to do. One commercial, he had me in full armor, but dressed with 80s aerobic gear.
Oh, yeah, definitely wouldn't be doing that.
Leg warmers, and he had me doing aerobic kicks with a bunch of aerobic girls. That was one commercial. And then another commercial, he had me in full armor with a pair of roller skates, roller skating around a roller disco. True. Would that fly now? I don't know. You tell me. But that's what I got to do.
Well, still fun. Don't think it would be happening now, though. So you also are in other Star Wars costume groups. You do the Rebel Legion, where you do an awesome Chewbacca. I know you've gotten to do some cool things because of Chewbacca. What are some of the cool things you got to do from that side of it? Because being that type of character, you get a lot more cool things you get to do.
Yeah, I mean, I love being the Wookiee. It's a lot of fun. I bear the task of wearing stilts bolted onto my legs, but it's all for fun. And it's, once again, even doing that, that's opened doors for me for a lot of cool opportunities. And I guess, one of the biggest things personally for me in regards to being Chewbacca is every year, I, knock on wood, I hope it continues, I participate in Star Wars Night at Yankee Stadium. And it's a big event where I guess most of the big costume groups, 501st, Rebel Legion, Saber Guild, all of them, were all invited. And I'm a huge diehard Yankee fan. And just to be on that field at home base, every year I'm there, they ask me to mingle with the umpires and hang out. And help hand in the lineup card, and I'm standing in at home plate, and I'm looking at the crowd, and I'm seeing me on the big, giant jumbotron, screen, and I'm thinking, this is amazing. No one knows it's me. I'm wearing a big furry costume, but I know it's me, and that's like a little dream come true for me, and that's a blast. And getting in that walking carpet outfit has definitely brought some good times like that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the Yankees games are always amazing. I mean, just to walk out on to the field and see all those people is insane.
It's a huge event, and they treat us great, and everyone has a good time. We all do. I know you've done it many times.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's one of the best troops of the year if you can get in on it.
Oh yeah, I knock on wood, I haven't missed one.
Yeah, I think I've only missed one as well since we've started dating.
I have not missed one. I'm knock on wood.
Oh, you have not missed one. I missed last year's. So the question that every Star Wars fan gets asked: how'd you get into Star Wars, man? What's your Star Wars story?
Well, my Star Wars story. Well, I guess long before the days of Kylo Ren and Rey and Poe, I saw Star Wars. I guess it was just called Star Wars then in 1977. I didn't see it on video or on TV in the 80s. I was there at a movie theater in 1977 and watched it as a little tyke. And it's everything that you've heard a billion times over. It is a game changer to that generation. Now you gotta think of it. We're spoiled now in this generation. There is a big budget sci-fi movie or a superhero movie or something like that every other month. Okay, back in 1977 there wasn't. I mean, it was Star Wars. And when Star Wars came out, there was nothing like it, and it captured a generation of kids and adults into this whole world of fantasy, hope, and adventure. And it was a huge phenomenon. There are mega billion-dollar movies now, but aside from making billions of dollars at the box office, I can't think of a film that has captured society and created a culture and became such a huge phenomenon as much as Star Wars has. We don't have that anymore because we have so much now. We're kind of desensitized to it. It's not really that special. Back then, Star Wars became a culture. It grabbed the world in a way that I don't see films now doing. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
No, of course, yeah, man. I mean, even just look at it like with the 501st. I mean, you have people from all different age groups in this one group that you wouldn't be hanging, probably would not know each other otherwise. It's a crazy thing how it just every generation knows Star Wars.
I mean, it's just it's to a lot of people, and to a certain degree, for you and I, it's a way of life, right?
That it is.
I don't see that sort of thing happening now.
No, I don't think it'll ever happen.
Not in the social or cultural sort of way. You know, and I don't see any sort of film franchise just grabbing the world the way that Star Wars did. You know, it sells tickets, it makes money. I mean, I've seen a lot of the movies do that all the time, but not the way, not the way Star Wars did. It was more than just about selling tickets.
No, I mean, it's even more than just the movies at this point. I mean, some people, when I think of Star Wars at this point, I don't even think of the movies as much anymore than I do all the experiences and other things I do within the Star Wars community. It's a crazy thing how it can transcend from being a movie into all these other things.
But sometimes I have to step back and take myself back and think about those original 3 films and remember how pure it was.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's so much Star Wars, this and that now. Sometimes I have to step back and think about just how pure it was back in the late 70s and early 80s. I don't think, and this might be a selfish opinion, but I don't think it captures people the way it did us when we were kids. I don't think it's the same thing.
No, yeah, definitely not. So before you were doing the Star Wars cosplay, were you doing any other cosplay?
I gotta be honest with you. Star Wars and the 501st Legion was pretty much my gateway drug into the world of Comic Cons and cosplay. That introduced me to the world of costuming at different conventions and all that. And before that, it was just like, Halloween. That was it.
Cool. So that's what I really always wanted to know, because you are such a big figure, I guess, in cosplay community. Like you
I'm not. Don't
so
listen.
much cosplay.
Don't listen to Jonathan Diaz. He's lying. No, don't listen.
Nah. People know you, bro. But you do so much cosplay now, and it's cool to know that it all started with a white Stormtrooper costume.
Well, I'll take a guess in saying that I, like many cosplayers, my favorite holiday growing up was Halloween. And I can't be the only one to say that within the cosplay community. However, before the dawn of Comic Cons happened, it was like you dress up for Halloween and that's it. And I was deep down inside I was a little bummed that that we could only do that once a year, because I loved dressing up, even as a kid, dressing up as my favorite superhero or super villain or whatever. And there was always a lot of pressure in regards to like picking what to wear, because Halloween only came once a year. And I'm like, well, I got to make a good decision because it's only one day, and trying to make the best decision possible. And then after the 31st, you're done, and that's what life was like. That's you just went through life like that and figured, well, maybe next Halloween we'll do something else. So as I entered the 501st and trooped and I was introduced to the world of Comic Cons, and this opened the door to, I guess, what would be like a big important part of my life for the next few years. And it dawned on me that, wait a minute, I can do this and dress up, in costume characters, and I don't have to wait for Halloween. And I'm like thinking, this is this is a gas, man. Seriously. And so, the idea of, being able to like, suit up and dress as, crazy characters several times a year rather than, once a year, heck, sometimes even several times a month. This was just an amazing concept to me, and it was through Star Wars costuming in the 501st that led me to that realization. And from then I decided, well, let me do other things other than Star Wars stuff. So I, dipped into my own personal fandom and, started, I'm a comic book geek.
Mm-hmm.
So, I decided to do comic characters, and then not only, then it grew from comic characters, then like pop culture, characters. And every year I would come up with crazier ideas, and year to year, people would just, recognize me, or laugh at me for whatever reason, but, I was just having fun with it. I mean, I still do. And it's really, it all comes from being in the 501st. That was the gateway drug.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what are some of your other favorite cosplays that you do? I know at Comic-Con, every year since I've met you, I've ran into you and not known it was you until you've told me, because you've been in some crazy costume.
Yeah, I like to do that to people. I like to terrorize friends, and they not know, have them not knowing it's me. Well, there's Chewbacca, but he's Star Wars. But I do really enjoy suiting up as a Wookiee. In fact, Chewie, that in itself was sort of, the doorway to other giant stilted costumes that I do. From Chewie, I've done, Gorilla Grodd. He's a DC Comics villain. Man-Bat, people love my Man-Bat.
Oh, yeah.
He's a Batman villain with, huge wings. Hulk, he's on stilts. Some of my, I guess my non-stilted outfits would be, people love my 1966 Adam West Batman.
Yeah, I was going to say that one.
That's one of my go-to. But people are always asking me, where's the bomb? Because they always want to see me run around with a bomb. It's tiring running around with a bomb.
That was the couple of times that I've seen you, you had the bomb with you.
In fact, I've done the bomb version of Adam West. I've also done like I don't know how familiar you are with the series. I've also done the Adam West Batman with the surfboard and the surfing shorts. I've done that. I do Iron Man. I've done Iron Man. I've done Beast from X-Men. Ultron from the Marvel Universe. It's just a slew of
crazy list.
A lot of crazy lists. What I try to do in regards to cosplay, I tried, I guess with the exception of maybe Iron Man or Batman, I try to avoid like some of the marquee characters. Like whenever there's like a hit Marvel movie, I will avoid cosplaying as that character because everyone's going to join in and do that. So I do a lot of B or C list characters, and people get to like that, like Grodd. People like my Grodd. It's fun. Cosplay has become a big part of my life. And I've met a lot of people, and a lot of people all over the world. It's a great community, and
yes, it seems like that's also given you a lot of opportunity too from doing the other cosplay and stuff like that as well.
Sure,
I see.
Sure. One of my another go-to bucket list dream is to be in the Adam West Batsuit and drive a Batmobile. And I got to do that last year at the annual Dragon Con parade. And I was lucky enough to have been asked to suit up and drive the Batmobile.
That's awesome.
For the parade. I was nervous as hell. I mean, I was
Of course, yeah.
like, ow, you know, and I was going really slow. I barely pedaled that thing, you know, because I was just afraid if something happened to it. But, you know, I guess, I mean, technically speaking, it's not the most comfortable car to be in, especially if you're wearing spandex in the hot Atlanta heat. But it was a dream come true. That was a good time. That was a fun time.
Cool, man. Another question is, what are some things that
You like my bucket?
I do? It's nice.
My buddy.
I should have mine here.
Buddy,
I'm a bad person who doesn't have his bucket up. Another question I would like to know too is, what have you taken from the 501st that you kind of just use in your everyday life after 15 years of being in the 501st? Like, what's something that you've learned from the 501st that you kind of taken in your everyday life?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say, I guess, just off the top of my head, I would, what I learned, what I've gotten from it, is that I guess I've benefited in a way to have been introduced to and to be in a community and introduced to so many wonderful people from all walks of life, and that I would never have met if I wasn't, you know, in this community or in this group. And, you know, I've met so many people that, you know, and learn from so many people from all walks of life. And, you know, with everyone with people, with every, you know, set of people you meet, and with anyone you meet, you know, you learn things from people. And when I think of the things of like, well, you know, if it wasn't for this guy, you know, I wouldn't have this. If it wasn't for this person, I wouldn't have this. Wouldn't have this person. And a lot of that, you know, comes from me knowing people in this community. You know, just and that's what I take from it. I mean, it's just, you know, there's a lot that I mean, the truth is there's a lot I can say that I owe and I'm thankful for being in the 501st.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I know it's not like we're all doing a lot anyway with all this going on, but
We're done?
Yeah, they're short. We're not keeping them too long.
When's the poker game?
What? Oh, the poker game? I mean, we can stay on after this and do that. I can show you some magic tricks with my Star Wars cards. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. We can do a magic off.
All right, Ruby. Thank you so much for doing this. And
hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Cool.
This was a blast. I'm glad you reached out, man. It was a good time.
Yeah, man. Cool. All right, everybody. See you later.